Hello, everybody. Welcome to another in our series of OBA Zoominars. We call them lovingly Zoominars because we're hosting on the Zoom site. As we kind of progress and kind of consider options, we may switch over to whatever gives us the best presentation, because that's what we're focused on, is making sure we're presenting something really great. OBA is the Organic Horticulture Benefits Alliance, and it is a phenomenal organization run by these 9 volunteers. You can see there's 10 people up there, but I'm not a straight up volunteer, but I do love the organization. And we just do organic education. So in kind of the COVID era, we're pivoting like a lot of people are pivoting and kind of putting some goals early on. And that's, in this case, these online education pieces. A few of the things are going to be rolling out. Also, we got some really cool stuff coming in August. In August, we usually have a live webinar. I mean, a live, not webinar, a live kind of conference to really do a workshop. That's the word I'm looking for. And we're not really comfortable doing a huge live event like that. That's usually a couple hundred people. So we figured out a really cool solution. So stay tuned for the release on that information for our normal organic horticulture workshops in August. So continue that going. So there's our awesome board. For more information, we do membership, and we'd love to have you be a member. And that'd be really great. More people joining up. Here's a few of our sponsors. So big thanks to Home Show Garden Pros. This is your local radio show that talks about gardening. Kind of always going to stay in the soil first, ecologically minded, sustainable first, organic gardening sort of genre. And it is a bunch of different people dishing out a bunch of great gardening advice. So you can see me on there, but my whole goal is to get more people talking and more people giving out great advice. From all these experts from all over the city. So you can see that listen button, pretty great button for tuning in, and you can listen anytime. You could, once Betsy's done, you can tune right in and listen to the show. So pretty good stuff. To learn more about that and check out the website, just go to this website. It is homeshowgardenpros.com, and you can see we're on air every Saturday, 7 to 9. So next sponsor, we got a lot of good folks this time. So our next one is the Rice organization. So, really doing incredible stuff. And they have really been a long-term sponsor, long-term member of OBA, kind of really been all about beautiful and healthy for everyone residential gardens. So you can see just some of their incredible stuff. And, Laura, the owner and founder of it, is really just an advocate of doing this stuff, and she goes out of her way to sponsor and make sure that we can put on these great events. So big thanks to Rice Organization. Contact them this way. Their website, riceorginc.com. So riceorginc.com. So good stuff. Another just huge helper, just vocal supporter, incredible supporter. Sponsorship supporter is F&F. Shahid does a great job. And these are another just beautiful landscapes. And so it's so cool to see these folks chiming in on, Betsy, who's talking about soil health and talking about getting the most out of your landscapes, from big prairies to small gardens. And just to see these residential people kind of step in is really awesome. That's F&S, do a great job. Microlife, if you're not using Microlife products on your gardens and your lawn, I would really encourage you to do so. Not only are they incredible sponsors, but the founder of this company, Microlife, is also one of the founders of OBA. And there you go. They're what they care about right there on the bottom. Healthy soils, healthy plants, healthy people. They are actually literally about that. So feel free to find their stuff pretty much everywhere, all over the place. So I know Ace Hardware, most garden shops have it. If you have questions about where to find it, they do have a good locator on their website, microlifefertilizer.com. And the next one is the Joyce Saran Foundation. It's just a dedicated, I said dedicated because it's written there, but they're committed to helping OBA out, because OBA is all about, making this city, making the state better through kind of environmental habits, right? We all have our habits that are environmental, and the Joyce Saran Foundation is passionate about improving the lives of women, children, animals, and the environment. And when you affect the environment positively, every being benefits. So it can be a selfish act, helping the environment. So we encourage you to that selfish behavior, not some other ones. So big thanks to Joyce Saran Foundation. And, you know, without sponsors, these sponsors and sponsors that have sponsored lots of other events, you know, we couldn't do it. So we just couldn't do it. So big thanks to those folks. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce Betsy Ross. I have got to work with Betsy at Herman Park, at Memorial Park, and she is just so wise and so knowledgeable. I don't know that there's a person that I want to listen to talk about kind of how to go from bad soil to great soil. And that would probably be a worldwide, now that, you know, through those opportunities and relationships, I've met people that do this worldwide. But we're so lucky to have her. So without further ado, the wonderful person and knowledgeable person presenting on the rain dance. So ladies and gentlemen, Betsy Ross.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Oba, for having me in town for this. I live in the country outside of Austin, and so the internet isn't very reliable out there. So I came down to the big city today. So thank you for having me. Okay, I grew up on a ranch out in West Texas, and the droughts were just taken, they were just systematic almost. It was just, you always were facing a drought, or you were getting, one was coming, or one was leaving, or maybe you would get rain. And so when they asked me to do this on the rain, I kind of got excited, and Mike Sarant told me, he said, well, I've been out doing a rain dance. We need rain. And so sure enough, if you look at this landscape right here, you would say, we need rain. If only it would rain. And we shout that over and over again. And at my farm, we shouted it in 1996 and again in 2000, and then another one came in 2006. And then the big one came in 2011 and 12. Well, you know, this actually was at my place. My sister there moved out to live on the farm with me in the year 2000. So it's pretty pitiful. I'm ashamed of it looking back. We've learned how to do much, much better with all of this. And of course we need rain. That's it. But is the cause of a drought a lack of rain? And so today I want you to begin to think of maybe there's more to it than just needing rain. And so let's look here. Anyway, we got rain, lots of rain, too much rain. Gracious, what are you doing? You're carrying off all of my soil. You're going down. Where are you going? And you want to shout, wait, rain, wait, don't leave, don't leave. You know, it's kind of like one of those old movies where they're always pleading with someone, don't leave me. And the rain just keeps right on going down to the river. And so we prayed for rain, we shouted, we danced, we got the rain. But wait, same place, 10 days later, dry as a bone. We need more rain, we shouted. We need more rain. Let's have more rain. Let's do another dance. And I didn't mean to do that, I don't think. And so if you look at this, what was left, you can see that our grazing management is horrible at that time. We were just I'd run away from the farm, the ranch out in West Texas when I was 18, went to the university and went on to do other things and came back in the year 1992, but moved out full time in 2000. And so I had a lot of relearning to do about things. And man, this drought was just, when the rain came, it was just devastating. But look at that. If you can see on the right of the screen there, it's just almost bare ground. And the soil, there's nothing growing on the side of the creek because we haven't done anything to promote that. We're actually moving some of those big rocks down the creek. I mean, that water was ferocious. it's just a huge setback. And then in 10 days, if you don't have any rain, you're really up a creek. Don't have any moisture left in your soil. So anyway, we're going to talk about rain, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to understand more about rain. So it's kind of like Coach Landry said, there's when you pass, there are 3 things that can be terrible and only 1 thing that's good. Well, if you have a raindrop, you can move, a raindrop is going to move one of 4 ways once it hits the ground. Now it can go up and through evaporation or transpiration, but through the plant, but it's just sitting there like it is over here at MD Anderson. And there's no way that water is going to go anywhere except volatilize into the air. So we know automatically it's got problems, but that's not good. We want to see if we can learn more about keeping every drop of rain we get. That's our goal right now, is to see how we can do that. And that's really what sustainability is about. And then the other thing we can do, a raindrop can do, it can go sideways. How it sheets off, just like you see in the picture here at our farm, surface runoff. And that's not too swift either. A lot of destruction. Down here in Houston, I know y'all, this is frightening when water starts moving around like this. So wouldn't it be great if we could prevent that? I think that would be just great. Well, a drop of rain can also go down deep drainage into a pond or aquifer. Thank goodness, I've forgotten what they call them, but you just have these rocks in the hill country where water just goes straight in and down into the aquifers. And it's pretty exciting when you're out there during a rainstorm. You can just hear the water rushing through, rushing down some of these rocks. Pretty exciting. Of course, you don't want to be sticking your head in there and seeing what it looks like down there at that time. But, and then a rain drop can be held in the soil before moving in one of the other 3 directions. And one of the keys you got to remember is that water chases carbon. And 1% of soil organic matter will hold up to 20,000 gallons to the acre of water, rainwater. That's a lot of water. Well, this picture on your right was taken just the other day. Now, would you like to think that that was your place and you see that shed back there? Well, that's on this place. It had been heavily overgrazed, had been trampled on, probably a little compacted. The pasture on the left there's no water showing. And then you have more water on the neighbors, and we'll look at those again in a few minutes. But you got to realize we don't have to let all the water run off. We can capture it, and we can be intentional about it, whether you're a huge acreage or you're a park or you're a backyard. You just have to realize what you're doing and build up some of these things. And I'll tell you how we do it later on here. So that's what can happen to a drop of rain. So like Coach Landry, it'd be better. There's a really good outcome there, but there's some disastrous things that can happen to you too. So let's look too at water relative to other soil components. Now we need, this is the typical deal of what's really in the soil. We have to have air, we have to have water, we have to have about a little less than half of minerals, and then organic material, we got to have about 5% of that. But it's kind of hard to imagine all of this, I kind of think, oh, is the soil stew? I mean, is it all mixed up? How do we hold it? How do we keep it? What's it doing? Do we need to understand it better? And, you know, how do you get the air and the water in there in these percentages? Are these minerals and for them to stay? So this is really what we need to learn how to do, is keep the rainwater on our lands. And so if we can do that, then we're not just standing out there ready to take whatever weather brings us, and we're not so captive if we can add another dimension to it. And so it's kind of interesting about the soil aggregates. On the left, I'm holding up a slice, and you can see these little threads and little knots on them hanging down. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for those little knots where all of the biology and the energy from photosynthesis and the minerals are all being combined in there, creating energy, and are kind of protected. And then, of course, you know, since they're like little balls, roots and air and water can get in between those, and they also hold the ground together. So the microbes secrete a glue that holds the sand, silt, and clay together. And actually, the globulin, however you want to pronounce it, consists of a lot of carbon. So if we can get the biology and the roots down deep, we would have a bunch of carbon down deep, and our soil, our water would be held down deep. So the aggregate is very important because it really regulates the flow of water and air, carbon, the other things in the soil. Now, you just need to go back home and look and see if you can dig this up. First of all, can you hold it up by the grass and not have it all fall apart? Secondly, you know, is it all the same color there? That's good chocolate brown Hershey color soil. We know that's good carbon. That's a good environment for all these things to work together. And all. Now, if you plowed this field, or you spaded it all up, or you aerated it all, a lot of it, and then you sprayed chemicals on it, you would destroy these aggregates. And these aggregates are the ones that are going to take, make the drought less damaging for you when it breaks, when the water does come. And this is another sample of some other bunch of other aggregates. I love to look at them when we go out to these places. I want to see what's happening. You can see it in different stages here, but it's the little beads on the hanging down there. That's where the magic is. The biology lives and everything. So that's pretty neat. You want to see that, and you want to protect it, and you know you have a lot of energy when that happens. So the other day here in Houston, 6-inch downpour. Now the one over, I don't know if you can see this. Can you all see this? My pointer here. Well, anyway. The morning after it quit raining, they put the drone up and started taking pictures. And the one on the left, this is the top left one, the morning after it quit raining, the side that we've been managing holistically versus the one on the other side that's managed conventionally. And then after lunch, went out, flew it again. You can see that this water is still standing over here on the conventional side, but over here, it's not. Well, my goodness. And then 24 hours after it quit raining, then you do a lot of the water on the right side, the managed, has evaporated and all. But what do you suppose happened to this other side over here? What happened to the water? Y'all are so flat down here, it's not like you get to run off very well. This is what we're going for, so that we can make the ground, the soil, so good by using the native plants, photosynthesis, and mining them, getting the biology out there right, but you're going to have the biology to do this. Now just think what this would have meant done in Harvey if you'd had half of the rain or 25% of that storm come and water went straight down, and what you didn't tear up stuff. It didn't go down to the river. You weren't having all of these problems in traffic. People could still move around. You can still drive on that because of the deep roots of that. So that is really what you want, because you want to hold on to water as much as you can, and you want it there for the longest period of time for your plants and your biology to do. So real live example down here in Houston, and pretty amazing. Obviously the side that we are touting here is the one on the left and all. And so here's somebody else, the horrible, well, actually the 1955 was the worst drought of my lifetime, but most of you weren't born then. So this 2011 and 12 was really bad. So let's look here at just a small place. Leroy Slottick up in my part of the country by Taylor, an old organic guy, has taught us, he and his wife Bonnie have taught us so much. And look at this, no irrigation, no synthetic fertilizers. Don't worry about that little mustard seed. But at the 2013, at the end of the drought, he still got water in his pond, and this because, and in his, he can cut this, he bales this and sells it. But it is absolutely marvelous that you can do this coming off a drought like that. And these are not, you know, airbrushed or anything else. This is real. We've done these all over Houston. We've done them up and down 35. People are doing this all over the world. And I know I'm preaching to the crowd, but so often people give up when we get a drought and say, well, there's nothing that's going to be living there. And so they back off from it. And that's when you need to keep on with it and to eke it through. So every time you get wiped out with a drought, you stay as long as you can, and then you say, okay, when this thing's over with, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do harder. And you build up that soil organic matter, and you keep going. And so finally you can have a place. This is pretty well a place that can take care of itself, isn't it? Pretty good place. And then down here in MD Anderson, it was a mess standing at the start, March 2013. The water was standing. They'd taken down a building there, and but it had that good backland in it. We sprayed it, we mineralized it, sprayed it, and look here, in 6 months, and then in November of 2015, it was still going. Pretty neat. No chemicals, just all biology, pampering to photosynthesis, rebuilding the microbe bridge, and making sure the microbes never ran out of food, which are the hard minerals that we use. So as bare spot, you can see on the left some good soil organic matter they had, but really it was very spotty. You couldn't do much there. So usually it just takes adding, in this situation, would just take adding the microbes and making sure they had a lot of detailed food. So you would be starting on a line kind of like this. And this is what happened pretty quick, complete coverage. When you have coverage like that, most people would say, oh, it's going to burn. Oh, my, you know, you need to graze it. Oh, my, you need to bale it. Just let it there and let it heal. People get worried about grass lying on the ground. My goodness, that's the store that comes back. That's the ice cream wagon that delivers, the milkman that brings the milk to your home. And here this grass is, when they senesce and go down, if everything's set up and you have helped Mother Nature do that, get ready for it, then she just goes right after it and you can have stuff. This is never plowed. That's always a plus when you find a place like that, because you know that the mycorrhizae and the aggregates haven't been torn up, and so you can feed it. Now, it's not a manicured lawn, and I failed to mention that we deal mainly with perennial plants, small places or large parks, I say, or yards. But your annuals are going to come in to help. And of course, most of the wildflowers are annuals, but each of them are pulling up something that the soil needs to heal and get better, to build more carbon, to photosynthesize more. We want a lot of plant diversity, because remember, each little group of microbes, they don't like everything that could grow. So you're going to have a little go-go club following each one of these different kinds of plants, saying, can I help you? Can I help you? Do you need some of my mycorrhizae? I can bring you some water if you'll give me this, that. And there they go bartering, and you get this diversity. So having diversity means, you know, if some of your group is getting old, like some of us are, then we will need some young ones to come along. It's going to be doing different kinds of work and all. So how would you like to have this place? I mean, this was pretty barren. I just couldn't find the picture. But it was up in North Texas. Look at that. That's a lot of energy. That's going to catch a lot of rain. It's going to hold a lot of moisture in the soil. It's going to feed a lot of microbes. It is going to be wonderful. It's going to cool the soil. It's going to be the air conditioning of for the earth. We're going to get all of those good things that are happening. So native grasslands are the great carbon and water catch. And my point today really is, you've got to work on three. If you're doing natural systems, you've got to work on three different natural processes. And the first one is most important, is the photosynthesis, which pulls atmospheric carbon and water plus some nutrients into the plant. And then the plant shoots it down and squirts out some of the, converts it to sugar and goodies and energy, and then they squirt it out of the roots and feed the microbes down there. And the microbes in the meantime are etching out some of the rock dust and all that you put down there when you were building it, or that you were getting down some other way. There are different ways you have to do that depending upon where you're starting from, what you're trying to do. But these are the three big things. You go a long ways down here, if you remember this. Now this is the old soil food web, and you'll notice this line here. And it really, it's going to come up here in a minute. I have that a little backwards. But this is what you're really trying to do. Not talking biology so much as I'm talking about, it takes all these pieces to work together for you to have a drought-free ground, to try to create a drought-free situation. And we're up the wall about this water stuff, y'all. We have to be looking at some more of these things. And the more of us that look at these things, the more we learn and the more of an effort we have. And up in the northeast part of the country, they have thousands and thousands and thousands of acres and waterways, whole watersheds that are doing all of this together. And it's a different story completely. They don't have the rampages and all. So the photosynthesis, this is over here on the left, you know, it's the plant. You got to have the plant to capture the energy from the sun. And then the plant can make, if you have the right nutrients, the plant can make sugars, and then shoots it down through the roots and gives some of your bacteria and fungi a little bit of food. They hold it in their body, and then someone comes along and eats them, or they die, and they release those nutrients. But in the meantime, they've used the carbon that you got from the sun and have built up in your soils. They've used that to make these compounds like antibiotics, like growth hormones, like amino acids, all of this stuff that's like probiotics, that is the magic of this. You don't have, if you do away with your microbes, you don't get this benefit. If you're just doing the conventional, then you don't get this process. You don't get your compounds made. Yes, you can make it green. Yes, you can fill the barn up with hay. Yes, you can, you know, have something pretty growing, but you have to keep after it all the time. And we want to have things, try to make things that are going to take care of themselves. And we're going to do that by helping them to store more water, more air in the soil. And it's all this group right here at the first, where it's easier to take care of than any other time of this passing energy through the food chain. Once you pass energy through, well, we'll look at that in a minute. But you know, the process of photosynthesis is really fascinating, and I don't have as good a handle on it as I want to, but I do know that carbon in the soil is the limiting factor to you setting up your situation wherever you are, even if it's a pot plant, or it's usually now in a garden, or you can pull in a lot of good stuff and set that situation up. When we're working on a commercial project, we can stack everything in, kind of sandwich it in anticipation of all these processes working together and overcoming some of this. But if you're talking about a prairie that has been just an old piece of vacant lot there, it's lost a lot of its viability, and you're going to have to do work a little harder. So photosynthesis is critical. And then with photosynthesis, you don't want any bare ground. You've got to have green all year long. Can you photosynthesize? Can you pull energy out of the atmosphere if you don't have a green plant? No, can't do that. And so what are you going to do when you start here? I mean, look at that. Even the cattle droppings are not even breaking down. There's not even enough energy for that. So to photosynthesize, you don't want bare ground. Now this is really green, and this happens to be my daughter there. I've loaded the kids up all their lives, bless their heart, and they've had to go with me, and I'm always saying, stand out there and dig a hole, or stand out there and let us see how tall that grass is. And they're very good natured. So but she's showing a little bit there. Mama, when are you going to, it's cold out here. But anyway, there's a lot of energy here on this green side, nothing over here. We still can keep going here. We can catch water over here. We can't catch water over here. We know what it's going to do here. It's going to run off or sit there and evaporate. It's not going to help us. It's not going to be there for a rainy day. So we're just going to talk a little bit about the soil biology. I want to show you, you know, there are bacteria and fungi. Protozoa eat a lot of bacteria, and nematodes eat a lot of fungi. Everyone's eating somebody else. But I wanted to show you a little bit of what droppings from a cow are going to look like. So, oh, I wonder if we can do this. we didn't check that out. Okay, I won't show you that. But wait.
You're good. You're good.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Did it do it? Nope.
Oh, just.
Yeah, I'm gonna have technical help here. Here we go. Cannot open the file. Well, I'm sorry. We've been switching around. This technology is too much for me. If you come to the house this weekend up in Granger, I'll show you. Just teasing. And that one doesn't work either. But there's some really neat, when you look at them, if you get a chance, these are all live critters and they're moving around. And there's no nap time out there for these guys unless they run out of food, and then half of them are going to die and the others aren't. So they are always creating, eating, spitting out, somebody else eating, you know, everyone wasted somebody else's dinner. You've got all this action going on. These little guys, you need to really take care of them. And one of the way that we talk about what your recipe, or how fungal or how bacterial is what you're trying to grow. What's the ratio? How many bacteria to fungi or fungi to bacteria do you need? So so this is a little path that goes up. Of course, it starts down here, weeds and Johnson grass and high nitrates. And a lack of oxygen, which we call compaction, which we call can't breathe, which we call now you're dying, has very little fungi in it. And so when we see that condition, we kind of know, I know what the situation is with my microbes. And so we know that for the best ratio for natives and prairies is I better make my compost so that, or find some compost to get, and you have good composters here. You can find some, you're gonna kind of look for this fungal to bacteria ratio for 0.75. You're going to have just miss the 1-to-1. We always try to set everything up 1-to-1. So this is oftentimes used as kind of a thumbnail. Okay, let's match these plants up with the biology that's needed. What's the best gardening ratio? Well, it's right here on the screen in that little green. That's what you're going for by bacterial to fungal ratio. Fungal to bacteria ratio, said that backwards. If you're gardening, most gardens. And then shrubs and vines, you're getting a little more fungal. And deciduous trees, pecan orchards, things like that, you're going to be you're going to be pretty heavy into fungi. And then, of course, what we find most of the time is people are way down here on the weeds and the bromus and the Bermuda, where we have very little fungi. Everything is just, there's not a real lot of diversity. So that's how we kind of use this to kind of see, because it's important to know where you're starting from if you're trying to get somewhere else. And if you're trying to get a prairie and you, like this is showing, and you're over here in the weed group, you got to move it all the way over here, both the biology, both the planting. You've got to do cultural practices is a little different. So this is kind of shows your weeds are mainly bacteria, lawn and gardens are even between your bacteria and your fungi, and then your heavy fungi with a little bit of bacteria in your prairie land. And I think rangeland's the same way. So that's kind of a different way. Now, we really, to make use of, try to capture this rain, those microbes get fed by these different plants here. And so this is a prairie right here. So they're going to be mainly feeding the fungi to keep everything going. And the annuals, wildfires here, are going to be going after a little bit of boron or a little bit of cobalt, a little bit of manganese, that kind of thing. So we don't want a monoculture when we're doing a prairie. Now this is a picture I found, it was done in 2006. I want you to see up at the top there, that pecan shell, and see all those little holes in that those pecan shells? Those are weevils. And they're terrible, terrible. And so when you're picking up a harvest in a big orchard, you're going to have these there's the worm or the whatever is in there, weevil is already eaten that out. But let's just see how good our compost tea or fungi is about taking out those guys, because you know they tell us it will take out those insects. It can do away with them, because most of your insects that are bad are pretty anaerobic. So if you'll just gather up something that you don't like, that you suspect has been, well, I think my tea will work on it, put them in a box, spray them down, and just start taking pictures for a week every day and see what happens. And it'll blow your mind at how one part of the world is eating the other part, and the other part is escaping, trying to into that shallow soil, blah, blah. Anyway, it's kind of fun. Stuff really does get after these things. So if you plow, it sets you back, because now you kill the fungi, your water evaporates quickly, no photosynthesis, no plants, so no food for the microbes and no humus made. Not good. Too much land is left fallow like that. So we want to capture as much energy as possible here. And what you have to think all along the way is, well, what you're fixing to do, keep the energy moving, or is it going to stop it cold? Well, you know, unfortunately, we really don't move enough energy through to our food plates anymore, because we are going to maybe mow too often, and our plants aren't going to have the solar panel to pull in energy from the sun. And then when you don't have enough there, then the roots, a lot of times the energy doesn't get down there if you don't have the right minerals that are the right microbes that can eat and work on them, bring to the aggregates, the biology to that. And so we keep whittling away our energy here, messing around, killing these guys that just came to help us. Or we're going to spot spray, you know, the old sunflower. Oh my gosh, and what it's bringing to you when its nest is down. It's just saying, I'm really trying to help, guys. If you let me finish what I'm doing, I will give you some calcium. I'll give you some manganese. I'll give you these things you need. You won't have to go get it. The other thing we do so often is we forget about where this food web starts on the trophic levels, and we'll start working at just take a piece and just work it. And if there's no food there, you're not. It doesn't matter how many dung beetles you bring in. If there's not any food that they like, they're not staying. Bye. And you just dropped your bucket of cost you $150 from Florida. You just lost it. I mean, we've been doing this for 28 years now, and unfortunately, we probably had to learn too much the hard way, but that's it. Another trip here with Susie. Why do we want native plants? Because they work well with it. We want a group, a community that's working well together with photosynthesis, with the soil, with the amendments, with everything that works down here. But isn't it pretty? Look at that. And of course, I had to stop and take that picture with her out there with the orange shirt on and with those paintbrushes. It's pretty exciting this time of year. So the energy in building, you know, what we're going to do first is here's our protocol, is we're going to build the carbon and the minerals first. We're going to put the minerals out on the ground dry. We want the biology never to go hungry, and we want them to reach homeostasis so the rest of them can take over. and we're going to shoot to build the carbon, and the soil organic matter has to get over 2%, because only the bacteria can eat if you're less than 2% soil organic matter. So we're going to do all this building work here, humates, a lot of things like that. We can put the carbon, build the carbon. And then we're going to pour, next treatment, we're going to pour on the microbes through the liquid compost extract or whatever you have, or you're going to mob graze and have a lot of urine and droppings on the soil, which are carbon. And so you're trying to get up here to where it all is resilient, where everybody can work then you can start influencing things up here at the balancing point when you get there. But there's no sense dumping on all that other stuff earlier. So realize that you have to think about this, and knowing where you start is really critical. So everybody working together, if we can do all these things, you know, and build the organic matter, build the carbon, manage it right, maintain it, then when that old drop of water hits, it'll be like that farm out at Orchard, Texas, I was showing you, where the water 6 inches went down, did not run off. And now it's in a savings account. When that microbe needs it, it's going to be there for it. You know, you can have your potassium and your nitrogen can all move. Your anions can move and have some soil moisture. Everybody's going to be better. And this picture on the left is your fungi, saprophytic fungi. That is that dropping. You've got your legumes growing. You've got all kinds of plants there growing. And so we have a community from all walks of life. We have a community with all kinds of skills working together. And that's what we want in our very own environment. And so really, and so instead of shouting, we need more rain, we need more rain, let's shout, we need more carbon, we need more carbon, and get after it that way. Last longer without the rains this time. Keep building. You can last longer next time. You can go from where we were in 2000 up here until this was like in 2007, and really the drought of 2012, we were just running out of steam at the end of 2013, and the rains did come and it popped back so quick because it wasn't stressed. So of course maintenance is important, all those things. But these are kind of some things I have that people ask me. And if you didn't realize it, I was a coach in one of my former lives. So you got any questions?
So you're welcome to just unmute yourself and ask a question. There is the chat feature where you can type a question if you'd like to. So now's the time where we're kind of open up for your questions. I do want to do a formal thank you for Betsy, and I'm just so happy to have you, and a formal thanks for our sponsors. Also, we do have other OBA events that are coming. The next one is Molly Pilarski. It's going to be phenomenal, and you can learn more about that on our Facebook page or just our website. So now that I've stalled for you, I know that lets you think about your question for a little bit. I will go first. I was really kind of the side-by-side fields, Betsy.
Yes.
That you saw, it looked like the road even between the two fields, the track of the wheels on the left side that had the holistic approach were greener and more resilient, and the ones on the right were muddier and looked like they were just kind of in worse shape, just so it affected the road too. Do you think that was the holistic approaches?
Yeah, yes, and that was just a road down in through the pastures there. But we had one of the highway and the ditches, and it was really evident there, and on both sides of the railroad track, where it was just running like mad, all kind of havoc being created. And here it was, the pasture that is adjacent to that road, the highway. You know, it was holding water. You couldn't find it. And so the cattle were out grazing, you know, and you can get on it. Now, if you have an orchard, And that happens, and you get a downpour, and you're harvesting. You're kind of you're shut down, and could lose your whole crop, but before you could get in there. But if you treated your soil right, you can be out there the next day with your heavy equipment harvesting your pecans, keeping the flood down.
Right. Right.
Hold water, not just to feed things as you going along because you need the water, but to quit just making such huge disruptions. But of course, we're all in a watershed, and that's part of the problem is not everybody plays on the same field, but you can still get after it and try it. It's actually kind of fun to do this and see it.
Absolutely. Betsy, I'll point you to one of the text chat questions there, kind of asking like, thinking of weeds as wildflowers and maybe defining what a weed actually is. And I know they have a lot of different roles, but just what is a weed?
Well, I call them, I don't call them a weed is a plant that's not wanted, sort of thing. I like to look at them as responders, what their job is. Every weed, every grass, every tree has a job of what nutrients it's going to pull up. And when it senesces, falls down and dies, that's its give back. And so when you're bare, what's going to come up are going to be like KR blue stems, not a wildflower, but you're going to have Japanese brome, which is not a wildflower, but you're going to have some of these plants that I call first responders. They're there to get the green growing, to cover the soil, to keep the barrenness from off of there. And so anyway, that's the way I look at it, and we have a huge database that we've been building by looking at what the give back is of a lot of these weeds that are so-called weeds that are bad. Yes.
Awesome. Are we able to? Is that on your website, Sustainable Growth Texas? Or is that something?
It's not quite there, but
okay. It is cutting edge information to consider the idea of what weeds do, and we're learning so much about it.
It's just fascinating, and of course you've got, like I say, you've got to figure out where you're starting from and where your client or where you want to take the land. If you're starting from a Bermuda field and it had been plowed 100 times before you planted the Bermuda, and then you want a prairie and you want it this spring, I don't think it's going to happen that quick. But it can happen, but you're going to have to be deliberate. So are you just making the soil, your vegetation better, like we did at MD Anderson? Because that was ripe, or that was a fungal environment all the way, even though it was compacted right then, it just needed the life to it. Are you going to make it better, what's there, or are you going to have to change the soil to get back what used to be there or close to it, sort of thing, if that helps.
Just kind of looking at a lot of the chats here, I do want to assure everybody that whatever weed you're dealing with, from straggler daisies to nutsedge to ragweed, it is serving some purpose. That graph that Betsy showed of the zigzag upward climb of soil organic matter, that these weeds are playing some role to repair your soil. So a lot of times it might just be simple compaction from the Harvey damage, but it also might be what chemicals you put on your soil or what use you put that soil through. So keep that in mind as you ask and think about specific weeds. That is definitely a long list of plants to identify each type of one. But just let's use clover as a great example. People freak out about clover in their lawn, but clover does lots of unique things to the lawn, maybe even like irreplaceable corrections.
Right.
So Betsy, could you speak to clover a little bit?
Oh, sure. Clover is, you've got to have your nitrogen. They're nitrogen fixers, and then there are legumes that are capturing the sun into their little, what do you call this? anyway, the legumes are,
Nodules, nodes.
thank you, appreciate that. uh, the capturing the what well 80% of what the plant needs you can get from the atmosphere. 80% of what the plant needs. That's phenomenal if you can set up good photosynthesis. And so part of that is nitrogen. You get your nitrogen free. You can get, it's going to come as NH4 or NH3. It's going to switch back and forth, bacterial to fungal, reproductive to vegetation growth. And so you've got to understand what the clovers are doing. They're another way to shore up and give them in a natural system to give you the nitrogen you need when you need it. And remember, it's been made into a compound by the good old microbes secreting all their little juices and all this probiotics going on. Everything that the land needs, Mama Nature can do if we understood how to do that. And the old books, the old books, the 1920s and all, were just rampant with all of this information. It was really amazing. And that's where we have dug out most of our information. But also from people who've been in the field a long time. When we started, there was nobody in the field hardly in 1992. And you could get 10 pounds of humates in Texas, but you couldn't get a truckload. Those came from either Alaska or California or whatever we were getting things from. So it's a different world now, and there's more information out there. So really read up on photosynthesis. It's the nodules are giving you, yes, they're giving you those nutrients. And they're releasing them. Now, if you have mycorrhizae fungi, it will go get it, work in tandem with the nodule and pull out some of that nitrogen all season long. Otherwise, your cows or your rabbits or whatever are just eating the clover and getting it from what they eat. But we want it to be releasing it to the soil so it can feed everybody down there in that underground world that gets so connected with these fungi. And it's like, what good is one little animal, one little creature like that? Well, there's zillions of them, bigger than our national debt even. I mean,
That's absolutely true. You mentioned compost tea, and I know that you professionally kind of create specialized teas, but maybe talk about compost tea a little bit. What time of year is great to put it out, and any advice you'd give the homemaker?
Well, it's interesting on a lot of times people say, well, when's the best time? Like there's just one time.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Get the
Tomorrow.
body out any way you can. Throw your coffee grounds out by the back kitchen, so put your plant shreddings down there to food. They'll just wake them up. There are a lot of macros, of course, waiting for their food, their time, the right condition for them to come up and help you. But the compost tea is your compost, what by definition, it is all, it's carbon and some nutrients, but it is all microbes. That's where they kind of form. And so when you take some good compost and you put water in it and you take a bubbler and you bubble that and you put a little molasses in it, you are going to be feeding mainly the bacteria, because molasses, but it will feed also good food for lower level fungi. So what they do is they say, oh my goodness, I better wake up. I smell food on the table, just like a teenager, you can smell Saturday breakfast, mom's cooking, and get up there where you couldn't raise them by hollering at them or shaking them, that kind of thing. So that it comes from compost. It is wonderful. The better your compost, the better your organisms are. and you put those out there. And the new research I've been reading says that if the water is brown, and in other words, if it's turned brown, that when you put them out in the hot sun, they're protected from the UV rays. Now, we don't like to put stuff out if it's over 100, except, it depends upon what's growing there. It depends upon how it's taken. We always check the energy level in these things. If we have good energy, we're going to go for it. And put the tea out because they're not there anymore. It takes a while to bring them back. And so if you put out poor compost, make your tea out of that, you're going to be spraying out poor compost. Getting started, the first pump, to get the pump working on the water well, that's the hardest part about it. And that's the same thing with if you start out with poor compost. Whatever you can do, if it smells, don't use it. It smells bad. If it stinks, if it is soggy sort of thing, this is your alley, making these compost things. But it drives so much, the quality of compost. I spend more of my time all the time vetting the products, the supplies we use to take care of our customers, because people are doing all kinds of funny things, mixing stuff. And of course, we're not going to have any GMO. A lot of the plants are GMO now, and so we don't have that as a tool anymore. Molasses is hard to find. But also a lot of the seeds have been bred out. They're just going to react one way. You couldn't change them, so they're not going to may not respond to the microbes or the photosynthesis. They've just been bred to do their thing. But that's usually when you're doing row crops, and most of the research is on food production, row crops. And that can be very misleading when you're trying to build to just have all this energy from all these different processes just harmonized together, all working together. I mean, it is just a neat place. We call it creating sweet spots where you're just content. You're just like, oh my gosh, I'm alive and I'm standing here and how did this good fortune happen? And so that's what you're going for. When you want to linger, that's a sweet spot. When you don't want to leave, that's a sweet spot. There's just something there. It's not because there's someone, waiting for you that's going to do you in. You're just all more together. It harmonizes together. And I guess that's a little more than you asked.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really wonderful.
So there's some others here. I don't know. It talks about the agricultural molasses. I know we are being forced to use that, but I get some other very expensive molasses, and I I'm also looking for some sucrose, sugar sucrose in that form. Can't say stuff. But
I don't really know how to say it either, so I think you're doing great.
But trying to make up for that, I just hate the ingredients you put down can bring you problems for years. Just like overgrading or mowing or digging up your lawn or mowing it short all the time. I don't care if you are using Celebration and you still just are going to have a quarter of an inch is the solar panel to capture the photosynthesis. You're not going to get all the health benefits if you don't fire up those systems, if photosynthesis and building up the jump-starting the microbial bridge and making sure they never go hungry. And that's why we like to use the rock dust, and all of that's been paramagnetized. All of that is loaded for, got energy in it. And I mean, you have to really work to get, I mean, having suppliers today like you have in Houston that are carrying these things, who are vetting all of this, it's wonderful. It hadn't always been that way. But there is no reason, if you live down in this area within 150 miles, that you can't get what you need here. But I would not use that that kind of molasses, the horticultural, because they're not, there's just one sugar plant left in Texas down at Rio Rosa or someplace like that. And yeah, that's another whole story. The molasses is, but it's a shame we've lost that tool, and we've lost it because of the GMO beets get thrown in there with the sugar canes. So, you know, it's a shame, but you got to make up for that energy somewhere.
Yeah, because I think that is the point in all this, is that it's not so much we got to make sure that we've got clover. It's not so much we got to make sure that we've adding this one thing. You mentioned diversity, and you know, we have a couple of classes of how you get clover in a thick native grass, but maybe you don't need clover at that point. You kind of, there's some of letting Mother Nature do her thing here, versus like, oh, Betsy said clover, I got to get clover in.
Yeah, right. And really, in a prairie, when there's a lot of clover out there in the prairies, but it's the kind you never get to buy. You hardly ever see it. It's just been there saying, oh, thank you. Finally, I get to come be out on the playing field again. I'm part of the team, and you've even got food for me. Thank you. Because in these systems, just like our communities, one thing depends upon another. You lose one part of the community, you have to make adjustments over in this part of the community, even though everybody is willing to help. And gosh, Houston has the example of everybody. I mean, people who hadn't really thought they were needed realize, I'm needed now, I'm coming. And they brought their boats, and they did all kinds of things for Houston. It was marvelous, inspiring moments. Same way in these communities of plants. Let them come. Don't be afraid of them. And we just shiver and say, oh, we've got to kill that one thing. It will miss. It won't. It just is shouting to you as a whisper of nature saying, do this or do that. So go after the clover. It is beautiful. It looks a little raggedy later on, but hey, most of the homeowners associations, after they get used to it and realize, oh, this is our clover. Oh, well, isn't that good? And you know, the photographers come out and the children come out and there's Easter wraps, and I mean, life is good because it's energy coming out of all of this. You've got to be intentional at letting everyone come to the table when they want to come to the table. You've got to let people help you in a way. And that's the way I feel about weeds. It's kind of like, well, my goodness, hi, I haven't seen you for years. How are you doing? What did I do that would let you come? I'm so glad to see you. We tell the birds, come on. If we want to feed you too, we want to feed everybody at my farm. And you know, people come out and the birders come out and they say, oh my, isn't this nice? And you know, the little mice and the snakes and all kinds of critters. Everybody is welcome at the food to come and be a part. Whether you can help us or not, we'll take care of you for a while, and then we know you're going to turn around and help us, because that's what good food does. If your body feels good, you're going to want to turn around and help people. That's just the way I feel about it. And it's just kind of nice to be my age and be doing something that I enjoy so much, that is so natural and all. So.
That's wonderful. We all really appreciate you kind of spending time with us, and you know, it is awesome what you're doing.
Well, I always enjoy
and
it.
we should follow your lead at any age. So Guillermo Lacona asked a great question about he was asking about clover, and it sounds like he's got a pretty dense native grass space, but he wants to add more diversity. Is there like a seed mix that you prefer, one that you kind of can recommend, like from Native Texas Seeds or something like that? You can be like, oh, try the Northern Pickermill seed. I'm just making something.
The native seeds, the buffalo grass and the curly mesquite and the Texas gama, bluegrass, are all pretty good lawn type seeds, and other diversity can come in with them. But one of the things you want to be sure and do is to get a mycorrhiza coating with some nutrients on it to powder on that seed before you put it down. Not just the but not just the inoculum you put on clover, excuse me, but you would sprinkle some on, especially your native seeds, because you want to give them a head start, and you want that energy in there. We do have that, by the way, on our website, I believe.
That's great.
But
really
any of the good seed people, Native American seed, Douglas seed, it's all, it kind of depends upon what part of the country you're in, but don't plant an invasive, something that you snuck into the United States from China or somewhere. So
yeah,
with the home folks, home team here, they just do better. They do better and they work better in these communities.
Yeah. Carolyn White did a project at Memorial Park one time where she, one of her interns, collect a bunch of little core samples, and we just got to see what seeds grew. And it was amazing, just like in a soil sample, how many seeds are there waiting for their need to arise, right? If it's a digger or a taproot one or a clover seed or something like that, there are a lot of seeds in your soil waiting to be needed. So don't think you got to add a bunch of diversity. It's probably there in a lot of your soils.
Mm-hmm. It just depends upon how fast you want to go. But very often, especially with KR blue stem, you have to get, that's first responder. It's just trying to cover the soil. It doesn't really belong here, but it has been here an awful long time. It's going to have a shallow root. So you got to do, okay, why is that here? What's the cause? And work on the cause, think it through. Is it overgrazing? And that was the only thing here. Is there somebody eating everything good that comes up? And so we would mineralize that, and we would put a 1-to-1 ratio fungal to bacteria compost tea out there. And we would certainly, if we planted it, we would want to see what would come up from that first, and see what kind of seed bank we have there. But we already we could test the energy of the soil, either with paramagnetism, or we can test it with those little EC meters, or the bricks, and you can just feel the energy after you get past the first responders, really. Or you can feel like this place is dead. There are no birds, there are no frogs, there are no crickets, there's no anything here. A deer wouldn't even come in and eat you. So, but you just give it a little food. You got to have food to live, period. Everybody does, every living creature. So we think that's a real key.
Well, we really appreciate your time, and Betsy, thanks so much, and great job, everybody. Betsy Ross, woo, thank you so much, and we're going to sign out, but that, as always, was phenomenal.
Thank you.